A family can be made up in many different ways.
It's called SOGI, for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identification, a curriculum that teaches public school students across Canada to celebrate the homosexual lifestyle and that gender is fluid. In other words, your gender is not dependent on what parts you were born with, but rather what you feel like in the moment.
There's people that are boys, there's people that are girls. There are people whose gender might be a little bit of both or might even be neither.
Lessons include books about transgender children, such as 10,000 Dresses, and songs like the Rainbow Song.
Gender won't decide the choices we make. Some boys like dressing up, some girls like catching snakes.
Carrie Simpson of Culture Guard, another leading opponent, calls the curriculum nothing short of child abuse.
All those beautiful qualities that make young girls, beautiful girls and women, are being basically vilified. The things that make our boys boys are being, taken from them. So things of equating young men to being strong protectors is something that's now evil.
She sees SOGI's real goal as
altering our culture from a heteronormative society into one where anything goes, no boundaries, no values, no morals. It's a hedonistic cult, basically, what they're implying.
Another blaring example, drag queen story time. It's happening in Canada and America, where some public schools and libraries invite drag queens, some dressed like torn demons, to read to young children.
And it's a social deconstructionist agenda. They're using children, little 5-year-olds, to accomplish this, and parents are waking up and saying no.
Drag queen story hour. And I go through an entire paper called Drag Pedagogy. If you want to know, the last sentence of that paper is that they say, their sentence, their words, to leave a trail of glitter in the carpet that you will never get out. The carpet, by the way, is your children's psyches. They're going to leave their drag queen glitter there. They say in the paper a number of things. They say that the point of Drag Queen Story Hour is to be a generative method to lead children into asking questions, focusing on themselves, and because the drag queen is, even if the person is not, but I think it probably always is, even if the person is not, the performance of drag is in fact a raging narcissist. It's all self-oriented.
Welcome to my house. Thank you. Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Year. Happy Pride Life. Yeah. Transgender children.
You are beautiful.
You are heard.
You belong.
You're understood.
You are loved.
And you belong.
Are we topless at the White House?
I am trans. I am a gay baby.
And so they're trying to present this to the children to make the center, they say this repeatedly in the paper, that the center is the performer. So your kids become foils to this highly sexualized clown man dressed as a woman. So they'll ask questions like, why are you dressed as a girl? And then drag queen might answer, does it matter if I'm dressed as a boy or a girl? And this is with your kindergarten.
To some students in the hallway. One of my coworkers told me that they were talking to some students in the hallway, and the students asked the other teacher if I'm a boy or a girl. And the teacher was like, does it matter? She's cool. And they were like, no, I just can't figure it out. It's just so hard, I can't figure it out. It's just like, that's the goal.
Angry what's gonna happen to the kids and the youth? And there's so many, there's so many people who regret this. There's more and more and more coming out, and younger too, on puberty blockers, that been on puberty blockers. And, when we get 30, 40-year-olds that are going to be like, what the did I do when I was 16 or whatever, and you can't go back. I'm sad for myself, of course, not in a victim kind of way, but in this process of mourning who I was is touch and go. So, but I'm sad for humanity and the children and what's gonna happen. When they're screwed up, we're gonna see what's gonna happen. And I really, really hope that all these professionals get their friggin' karma, because I know that some of them don't realize, and some of them might be brainwashed and whatever, but some of them know exactly what they're.
Yeah, Grant, according to the Human Rights Campaign, the state of emergency was declared following a, quote, dangerous spike in anti-LGBTQ plus legislation throughout the whole country, with more than 75 bills signed into law this year alone.
There is a clear and, I think, indisputable attack on the rights of people in the LGBTQ plus community and civil and human rights.
Here in Oklahoma, over 80 anti-LGBTQ plus bills were filed by the state legislature this session. One of them, House Bill 2546, sought to ban classroom discussion of gender identity or sexual orientation from kindergarten through 5th grade, but ultimately was not signed into law. In Oklahoma, Senate Bill 613 was signed into law by Governor Stitt, which bans gender-affirming care for minors. But the Oklahoma Attorney General's office agreed to delay enforcement of the ban while a preliminary hearing in a federal lawsuit is pending.
Now, 2 nights ago, we showed you shocking undercover video from a teacher in Santa Barbara, California. She bravely brought to light this vile racializing of her school curricula and what the school district was trying to hide from the parents, by the way, on what was a password-protected portal.
I want to show you what's being concealed from the parents in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Inclusive curriculum lessons, there's collections, the LGBTQ heritage, gender inclusive biology, educate and celebrate. There's activism, the youth advocate toolkit, preschool, grade school, and secondary resources.
Okay. 105 things white people can do for racial justice. White people do something. It's basically defunding the police and a new, smarter approach to public safety. It says to donate to BLM, make small crimes legal, do not support prisons, and reduce prison sentences.
Christy, who's behind these lesson plans? Do the teachers, for the most part, endorse this? Do they resist it? And what about the parents?
Well, who's behind the lesson plans? They've hired somebody to come in and write these plans. I think they just hired him this year. And I think they come from other areas where they have done the same things, maybe even taken over the school district in other areas like San Francisco, Salinas. And the teachers, a lot of the teachers do endorse it. Some go along with it because they think it's the trend, and you're made to feel bad if you don't, and if you don't, go along, be politically correct or whatever they want to say. And in Santa Barbara, they've been doing teacher trainings for us for the last 10 to 15 years, where they've pretty much indoctrinated the teachers to then indoctrinate the students. And even during those trainings, I knew something was wrong.
So it becomes a self-selecting group of people who would want to teach this, crap. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, most
Yes.
teachers, the people who taught me were just great teachers, men, women, young, old. They were amazing public school teachers. I can't imagine any of them would have ever tolerated being told you have to teach basically woke activism. It wasn't called woke back then, but basically left-wing activism. They wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, they make you believe. It's very manipulative. You know, I call it psychological warfare, and it's hard to understand because it's manipulation. They'll lie to your face. They'll tell you that this is the right thing to do. They'll make you feel bad if you don't do it, and so people go along with it for fear of standing out, for fear of being different, but and for fear, and it's a real fear because there's retaliation. I've been retaliated on for speaking up for quite a while now. So, but I'm not the type that moves away from danger. I move towards it. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, and that's what I've been taught. So, and I protect kids.
In California right now, there's a push for this class called Ethnic Studies. And actually, Gavin Newsom just passed right now that it's going to be a requirement for graduation. My district decided to go ahead of it and say, you know what, we're gonna make it a requirement for graduation now. And I kind of already had a feeling that it was going to be a lot of like, I mean, I guess the best way to put it is bashing on America, bashing on our history, bashing on just our country. I had no idea how bad it was. Because we are teaching online, we have most of our materials online, and us teachers share the same platforms. And the teacher that taught ethnic studies at my site, she actually had the same platform that I was using, and I was able to see all of her lessons. And it was shocking what I saw. It is dividing America based on race, and it's hyper race focus. So whenever you see hyper race focus, you're gonna see racism along with it. So, for example, they have this term called hegemony in critical race theory, which means that America was built to only help the white man. And everything else, all of the institutions that were put up were put in there to benefit the white man and to oppress everybody else. And so our students are learning about these concepts. We hear about critical race theory in our schools. Well, here it is right in front of you. And almost every single lesson had some sort of element of critical race theory. I mean, there was even a slide on Marxism. And these are like interactive slide presentations that were given to the students. So this wasn't like the teacher's plans or whatever. This is what the students actually got. Like, for example, I got a gift from my district for being black, a black teacher. And I get this gift, and it's only for black educators. And it's just, it was just such a pandering gift. And because I didn't accept it, I got attacked. You know, like, because I didn't accept this gift that had stickers in it that said, "I love being black." It also had a Black Educators Matter mask. I decided that, you know, this needs to be exposed. And it's just really sad and dark. And so if you're wondering whether or not critical race theory is a good thing for our country, start speaking against it and see how people treat you. You'll start seeing how bad it is, because that's when the real racism starts.
I use the term minor attracted person or MAP in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors. I've definitely heard the idea that you brought up, though, that the use of the term minor attracted person suggests that it's okay to be attracted to children. But using a term that communicates who someone is attracted to doesn't indicate anything about the morality of that attraction. And non-offending MAPs, by definition, do not abuse children, so their behaviors are moral. But they're still being subjected to this same idea that they're bad people. Stigma against MAPs is a problem in part because it makes MAPs think that they're monsters. That's really problematic in terms of MAP being. It's really hard to cope when you think you're a terrible person because you have attractions that you can't change.
ABC 7 Alert Center with that breaking news. Today, the fate of a Franklin High School English teacher who is accused of making controversial remarks about pedophilia was fired by the EPIC Board of Trustees. In a 15-second video obtained by ABC7, the teacher, identified as Amber Parker, addresses her class, telling them to reference to pedophiles as MAPs, or minor attracted people.
Stop calling them that. You're not allowed to play people like that. Stop it. Yeah. We're not going to call them that. We're going to call them MAPs. Minor attracted persons. So don't judge people just because they want to have sex with a 5-year-old.
You can see pictures of these where the kids are visibly horrified. Actually, it's clear that they're very uncomfortable, but that's generative. And the goal, they say, is in fact only strategically marketed as to induce LGBT empathy, and it is in fact to lead them to focus on themselves in the effort to hopefully get them to, and I quote in italics, live queerly. Get your children to live queerly. Queerly is a political statement. It is not a particular sexuality. It is an adoption of a political orientation against all norms and normalcy in society. That is the point of Drag Queen Story Hour, in the words of the drag queens themselves that write it and that do it. And then this is written by Loomis Hot Mess, who's written a number of children's books that I'm sure are in the database. For example, the hips on the drag queen go swish, swish, swish. And you can hear the song in your head, and that's what this clown performs in front of children. That song, among others, which are just rewritten children's tunes that we're all kind of familiar with. That's from Wheels on the Bus, by the way, is the tune to that horrific mess. They say in this paper also that Drag Queen Story Hour is presented as family friendly. They say that, yeah, maybe families and such, parents, grandparents, etc., will feel welcome at the performances. They may want to come and have fun with the children and connect and see it. It's, oh, it's fun, it's funny, it's a clown, ha, everybody's having a good time. But then they say, but when we say family friendly, we don't necessarily mean that. We mean the family that the queer person leaves their home to find on the street. That's cult grooming. Leave your family and join our family. That's cult grooming. That's literally the definition of cult grooming. And that's what they say in the paper, an academic paper published in Curriculum Inquiry last year. What they say is the point of Drag Queen Story Hour. So the whole point of Drag Queen Story Hour, like I said, is to, or any of this other sexuality education, is to raise the question. It's to bring up sex and sexuality and gender as generative themes. The gender-bred person in your kid's class, the gender unicorn, these cartoonish characters they present to them are there to get them to raise the question, why are you dressed like a girl? What, you mean if I feel different inside, then maybe I'm a boy instead of a tomboy as a girl? I just saw an article the other day that tomboy has a long history of being racist. What does that mean? They're trying to demonize the idea of tomboys so that these girls who feel a little boyish feel even more pressure that they're somehow a bad person for who they are. But guess what they could do? They could transition and get out of that. This is running hand in glove with the entertainment industry. If they're watching sexual themes in their cartoons, they might ask their teacher or talk about it with their teacher. Or those movies might know, we're going to watch a Pixar movie on movie day at school.
Well, my heart says that the way I feel most myself is to go by the name Fred. That's because I'm non-binary, and Fred is the name that fits me best.
And then the sexual themes are introduced, and then the class has to have a conversation about them. And so the teacher, as facilitator, as Paulo Freire had it, will then lead that discussion. And if that particular teacher has the intention to bring them into this queer theory or queer Marxist mentality about sex, gender, and sexuality or other issues, then they will use that initiation point to do that. And I said in high schools, at least in California, they're teaching about pornography because the high schools are clearly going on the internet and finding it, so the schools have to be the ones to help them make sense of the world. And that is the fundamental question. Another fundamental question this entire lecture needs to revolve around again and again and again. Is it the job of the schools to do any of this? And since when is it the job of the schools to do any of this?
It's wrong that the violence and hate crimes targeting LGBTQ people is rising. It's wrong that extreme officials are pushing hateful bills targeting transgender children, terrifying families, and criminalizing doctors. These are our kids. These are our neighbors. It's cruel and it's callous. Not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids. Are the kids and our children are the kite strings that hold our national ambitions aloft. It matters a great deal.